Governor Mary Fallin is calling state legislators back to 23rd and Lincoln for a special session beginning September 3rd. Their focus will be a 2009 law dealing with lawsuit filing restrictions that was found unconstitutional by the Oklahoma Supreme Court. I spoke with eCapitol News Director Shawn Ashley about what will be discussed in the coming weeks at the Capitol and what will not. Shawn, why was the special session considered necessary?
Well, what happened was after the legislature adjourned in May, in June, the state Supreme Court found that the Comprehensive Lawsuit Reform Act of 2009 was unconstitutional because it contained too many various subjects and violated the single subject rule. As a result of that, we have a situation where you had one set of rules for the civil court essentially on June 3rd and a whole new set after the court made its ruling, and that ruling was formalized later in the month.
Why did it take more than 2 months after the ruling to set the special session?
Well, I think there were a number of considerations at play. First of all, it was summer. People were on vacation, and they had to find out when everybody was going to be available. I think there was also some consideration given to determining whether a special session was necessary. Initially, Governor Mary Fallin and the leaders of the legislature said we need to decide whether we're going to have a special session to deal with this issue. I think when they looked around and they saw the impact, that there were court cases that were already taking place that were being affected by this, that a special session was the correct way to address it.
So is that why it was determined that it could not wait until February?
I think that's exactly the reason, is that we already are seeing the effects of this decision. There are at least 12 court cases that were somewhere along the line in the process that were affected by this decision. And in fact, the decision is even measurable. As you may be aware, oftentimes a judge will award pre- or post-judgment interest in a case. And what that is if you receive a monetary award as a result of an injury you suffered some time ago, the judge says you're entitled to interest on that money because you would have saved it in some way and earned interest. And if that decision is appealed, there's also interest applied to that time. Well, pre-judgment interest prior to this decision was less than 1%. As a result of this decision, pre-judgment interest is now 5.25%, a better than 500% increase, and that definitely has an impact.
Some legislators want to do more than one thing during this special session.
That's exactly right. Some Democrats have pointed out, for example, that we need to take a look at the Insure Oklahoma program, which appears to be going away at the end of the year and means 30,000 Oklahomans would be without some type of health insurance. Some Republicans have also suggested looking at corrections funding. Representative Gus Blackwell earlier this week sent a letter to the governor supported by other lawmakers urging her to do that as well.
The cost is expected to be $30,000 per day. How long do you think this will last?
Well, that's sort of the interesting question, because if you look at the Supreme Court's decision, what you see is that there were 24 amendments to existing law in the Comprehensive Lawsuit Reform Bill of 2009. There were also 45 entirely new acts created. So if you read that strictly, you're probably looking at least those 45 new acts having to be in separate bills, and then depending on how those amendments were scattered through existing law, you could have as many as 24 additional bills that have to be considered. And there were some other components to the legislation as well, which means another bill for that, and another bill for that, and another bill for that. We could be dealing with more than 50 bills in a special session.
We will be following the special session, and so will you. Shawn Ashley from eCapitol.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us.